Now past and present.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Going to go ahead and we have the review of minutes from past meetings. We're going to go ahead and defer that to the next council meeting, if that's okay.
Yep.
Fine. We're going to go ahead and read the closed session statement from April 16th.
Okay, closed session announcement regarding town council closed session April 16th, 2020. The town council met in closed session on Thursday, April 16th, 2020 at 6:26 p.m. at the Liberty Building, 107 North Liberty Street, second floor meeting room to consult with council, discuss the acquisition of land, and discuss personnel in accordance with the Maryland Opens Meeting Act. All three members of the town council voted to close the session. The authority to close the session is found in section 3-305 of the general provisions article. Town council discussed the following topics: consult with council, discuss lease agreements and a zoning matter, personnel, discuss compensation of specific employees, and land acquisition, discuss the potential acquisition of land. No actions taken. Following members and staff were present: Jeffrey Morgan, President; Timothy McCluskey, Vice President; Joshua E. Shantz, Member; Steve Walls, Town Manager; Sharon Van Amberg, Town Attorney; and for part of the meeting was Karen Luffman, Finance Officer, and Crystal Eball, Human Resource Manager. Meeting adjourned at 7:16 p.m.
Okay, next up on the agenda, we were supposed to have a 7:05 public hearing. Due to the closed session taking so long, we'll go ahead and hold that now. So the subject of these hearings are the following resolutions. Resolution 01-2020 is a resolution of the Town Council of Centreville for the purpose of amending the town charter to revise the number of council members, selection and term, and matters generally related thereto. I will now ask Ms. Van Amberg to provide background on Resolution 01-2020.
So this resolution is part of the series of amendments related to transitioning the council from 3 to 5 members. This first one in particular is addressing the fact that this first election will have 3 members up for election, and that one of those 3 members would have only a 2-year term, and then thereafter would have a 3-year term.
Okay. Next is Resolution 02-2020, a resolution of the Town Council of Centreville for the purpose of amending the town charter to revise the qualifications of council members and matters generally related thereto. I will now ask Ms. Van Amberg to provide background on Resolution 02-2020.
So this resolution deals with the qualifications of the council members, and it adds language that the registered voter requirement is for the 6 months, and it adds the word immediately preceding the election to match the requirement for the residency.
Okay, next is Resolution 03-2020, a resolution of the Town Council of Centreville for the purpose of amending the town charter to revise the number of affirmative votes required for the suspension of the ordinance requirements for an emergency ordinance and matters generally related thereto. Once again, I'll turn it over to Ms. Van Amberg.
So this amendment proposes to change that requirement from 2 votes to 4 votes in order to pass something as an emergency legislation.
Okay. Next up is Resolution 04-2020, a resolution of the Town Council of Centreville for the purpose of amending the town charter to revise the provisions related to the election of council members and matters generally related thereto. Once again, I'll ask Ms. Van Amberg to give background on Resolution 04-2020.
This section of the charter, this amendment would change how the membership from 3 to 5 will be implemented and how the elections will be staggered for the future. So this fall, 2020, there would be 3 members elected, 1 for a 2-year term and 2 for a 3-year term. And then in 3 years, it'll just be 2 members that will be up for election. And then in 2021, and every 3rd year thereafter, 1 council member will be elected. And in 2022, in every third year thereafter, 2 council members would be elected. So there'll be a 2-1-2, and it'll keep repeating itself.
Okay, next up is Resolution 05-2020, a resolution of the Town Council of Centreville for the purpose of amending the town charter to revise the provisions related to vote count and matters generally related thereto. And once again, I'll turn it over to Ms. Ann Van Berg for Resolution 05-2020.
This one just adds some plural references to address the vote count, since some of the elections will have multiple council members elected at that time.
Okay, next up is Resolution 06-2020, a resolution of the Town Council of Centreville for the purpose of amending the town charter to revise the provisions related to the uncontested elections and matters generally related thereto. Once again, Ms. Van Amberg.
So this amendment it adds some plural references to the language, since again, there will be multiple people up for election at times. But it also preserves that if the number of seats up for election equals the number of candidates, then there wouldn't be an actual election.
Okay. And next up is Resolution 07-2020, a resolution of the Town Council of Centreville for the purpose of amending the town charter to revise the provisions related to tie votes and matters generally related thereto. Once again, Ms. Van Amberg.
So this amendment has language that addresses the situation for this fall, where there's 3 seats up for election, and one of them is for a 2-year term. And in the event that there's a tie vote for that, the candidates would first try to resolve that issue among themselves, and if they're not able to do it, then there would be a special election.
Okay, I will now call upon Carolyn Brinkley, Town Clerk, to present evidence of the published notice of this hearing.
Certificate of Publication, State of Maryland, County of Queen Anne's. This is to certify that the annex legal advertisement has been published in the March 20th, 2020 Queen Anne's Record Observer.
Okay, we will first hear from all those in favor of proposed resolutions 01-2020 through 07-2020, and then hear from those opposed. Have any written testimony been submitted for these resolutions?
Yes, there was one.
Okay, and I think Councilman McCluskey is going to read that one.
There's none in favor, though, right? Should we close that portion or indicate that there's not been any received in favor?
None have been received in favor, then? We'll so note that in the record.
Yep. There is one comment here. This is from Dan Worth. I recently realized that the purpose of the voter registration requirement is to verify that candidates for the town council are U.S. citizens. Without that requirement, a non-citizen resident could run for town council. That being said, I think that the registration requirement should be verified only at the time that a candidate is certified. This would eliminate any confusion that might occur after someone is elected. I also don't think that there is any way to actually verify that someone has been registered for 6 months. The state database only tracks when a person registered in the county. In other words, the first sentence of section 202 should read as follows. Council members shall be at least 25 years of age, have resided in the town for at least 2 years immediately preceding their election, and shall be registered voters of the town at the time they are certified for election. Thank you, Dan Worth.
Okay, that's all for the opposed. The Centreville Town Council will consider all comments presented before making a final decision regarding the proposed resolution.
Did you want to read the part about that we're going to leave it open for 2 more weeks?
And it's actually 3 weeks
3
till the
weeks.
May 7th meeting. There's an extra meeting in April, so there's 3 weeks between now
Right
and
after
then.
clerk will indicate if any testimony has been received. Do you not have that?
Public comment?
This part right here.
No, okay. All right, sorry. Public comment will be left open for three more weeks. For anyone wishing to provide written testimony in favor of or opposed to resolutions 01-2020 through resolution 07-2020, additional comments will be read at the May 7th Town Council meeting. The Centreville Town Council will consider all comments presented before making a final decision regarding the proposed resolutions.
Before we adjourn, I have a question for Sharon on one of these resolutions, Resolution 03-2020, which deals with the emergency ordinance where you would have a minimum of 4 council members. The way that I'm reading this, and please tell me if I'm wrong, this will be passed along with all of the other ones, and it will go into effect before we actually have 5 council members. So if that happens, and we have an emergency and we need to pass an emergency ordinance, it will be physically impossible for us to do that. So is there a way to change, whether it's section 2 and section 3 or whatever other sections, to say that it will actually go into effect on the day of that we seat 5 council members?
Yep, we can change the effective date. You can, the minimum you can do is 50 days, but you can always have an effective
Okay.
date later than
Can you
that.
just make sure that, we don't want that to go in there beforehand. Thank you. I apologize, God, with.
No, you're good. Anything else?
No, I'm good.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn these hearings for tonight and to continue them until the May 7th, 2020 Town Council meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. I now declare these hearings adjourned. All right, before we get into new business, I just want to make sure that we thank Optical Galleria for, once again, providing the funding for this meeting to be televised. I think this is the 3rd out of 6, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 3 more. So, up on new business will be
We're
board.
still under H, water sewer payment plan. Old
I see they
business.
got that on. Okay, sorry. Still under old business, water sewer payment plan due to COVID-19.
This is something that we had brought up last time at the request of a citizen, and staff has come up with an updated agreement and terms, and I think that it answers my questions. I think it makes it pretty fair, and I think it answered all the council's questions as well. So if people do have hardships, they can come to the town and they would have this option.
All right, does it, I think there was a question before because it was worded a certain way and we wanted to change that wording.
Yeah, Sharon revisited it and changed some of the language to make it more clear.
It's on the second page.
Yep.
Sharon's changes are highlighted in yellow and her one mark off.
Okay, so can we kind of make it clear for the public out there so they understand what we're actually doing here? So,
So the way that this is set up right now is that, and I guess the one question that I had is what Tim brought up at the last meeting, as far as deferring payments, if we would defer payments until, if someone needed a deferment, would it be deferred until the state of emergency was lifted, or, because I have a part on here that payments to begin with a date.
I think it's what we talked about, right? It was like, once the state of emergency was over, then we go back to standard operating procedure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that gives you some leeway in determining when it will be. If someone comes to you and says, I can't make any payments for 3 months, then you could just put on here, starting in, September or whatever that is. I think you're given the leeway. The important thing I think that we have here is that what it does is any financial hardship due to COVID-19, it kind of separates these payments out to some point in the future. And you will not receive any late fees as a result of this. But if and when everything goes back to normal and we're several quarters back, even if your payment plan is still going, if you miss a regular water and sewer payment, you are going to be subject to possible fees and possible shutoffs. But as long as related to this particular payment agreement, you will not be shut off, and there won't be fees associated with that. Is that basically what it says, Sharon? Yeah.
Okay.
And we're allowing them to fill out the first section, the first table with the payment amount they think they are able to afford and the dates that they're able to pay them. And then we've got a section on the back where staff can mark when we receive them and
Okay.
what their remaining balance is.
and is there a way to notate that if something should happen where somebody comes in and says, look, I'm going to be able to make certain payments, and then for whatever reason they don't have a job any longer, get laid off, they can come back in and say, just gotten laid off, I really can't make my payments right now, we can just,
I would assume we could do that like on a
Yeah.
case-by-case basis.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So do we need anything for this? You want a motion or anything for this, or?
It's up to you if you want to formally make a motion to approve this form, or just consensus is fine.
I think consensus is fine.
Okay.
Okay.
It's something we already have in place, pretty much.
Okay. All right, so we'll go to new business. Board commission appointments. So I have before us reappointments for 2020. Guess I'm looking for a motion.
And I actually just want to note that at 4:30 this afternoon, Dale B. Kraft emailed in that he is interested in his reappointment. So it was after I'd printed all the packets.
I didn't see anything on here about,
Yeah, there should be the new appointment for Pat
Pat,
Cipriano.
okay.
Cipriano.
okay. And that's a 5-year?
5-year.
Planning Commission 5 years.
So why don't we go through,
The list.
why don't I make a motion for the reappointments, and then we can do the other one?
Very end of your.
I make a motion that we reappoint the following individuals to the following boards and for the following terms. Donald Dawkins, Board of Zoning Appeals, a 3-year term. Jim Watson, Board of Supervisors of Elections, for a 3-year term. Sandy Simpson, Park Advisory Board, for a 3-year term. Joseph Sabori, Board of Zoning Appeals, for a 3-year term. Davis Emery, Centreville Economic Development Authority, a 3-year term. Rich Ryan, Park Advisory Board, a 3-year term. Kerry O'Connor, Centreville Ethics Commission, a 3-year term. John Savak, Centreville Economic Development Authority, a 3-year term. Dale B. Kraft, Personnel Review Board, 3-year term.
Okay, I have a motion. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Pat Cipriano, who is currently an alternate on the Planning Commission, to a regular term of 5 years for the Planning Commission.
Okay, got a motion. Looking for a second.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So then we currently have a open vacancy on the planning commission. So,
2.
4 alternates, 2 alternates.
2 alternates?
And we've got 1 on the Personnel Review Board too, I believe, right? Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so anybody out there that's interested in serving on a board, feel free to contact Town Hall and we'll see what we can do for you. So, all right, next up is the water wastewater vacancy.
Yeah, with that, council, we have an existing vacant position in the Public Works Water Wastewater Division. At this point, we have an experienced applicant that we are doing reference checks on, and just really waiting on two references. Would like to ask the council for your support to continue to fill the vacancy.
Okay,
You have my support.
Got mine. Let's get it filled.
we're good. Go ahead.
Thank you.
And we had, that position's been open for approximately 2 months?
It's actually been open since January. We had it advertised for about 30 days, took us into February, and then going through, I think we had 80-some applications, so screening those out, narrowing it down, and scheduling interviews, and then I think the COVID-19 has slowed Crystal's ability to get some of the references.
80?
We had 88 resumes through Indeed, but we had to filter through all of the resumes.
I guess that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you good on that?
Yeah.
All right, next up is correspondence. Do we have any correspondence? I didn't see any. Okay. Next, we'll do the report of department heads. Town manager.
Town manager, mainly working on budget and COVID-19 updates and policy issues, so.
Okay. Chief of police? Saw him a little while ago. Oh, there he is.
Good evening. I really don't have anything more to add than what I did last week. At our next monthly meeting, I'll present the stats for April and anything that we have going on.
All right. Thank you.
Chief.
Town attorney.
I have nothing.
Town clerk.
I have nothing. I had an update from Carol, and I believe I printed it and left it on my desk, so. I'll actually forward it to everybody. You can read it.
All right. Kip, do you have anything for Public Works?
Just a real quick thing. With the storms that came through early Monday morning, we took a pretty bad direct hit on the water plant out on Comet Drive. We're still working on it, trying to get all the equipment back up and running. A lot of stuff's burned out, so, but the report's been made to the insurance company, and we're working on it to get everything back to 100%.
Okay. Anything else, or,
That's it.
okay? Finance Director?
Budget and Steve signed our audit engagement letter today, so we'll start prepping for audit here in the coming weeks while we're finishing
Keeps
budget.
going round and round.
Yeah, never ending cycle.
Okay. HR?
Hopefully we'll be fully staffed in a couple of weeks and trying to keep up with insurance claims.
Okay.
Can I ask that when we do agendas from here forward, we add all of the department heads,
Yeah,
whether they're here or not,
yeah, I was
just
writing
put
that
them
too.
on there, right? Just, you know, as long as it's a department head, just put them on there. If they're here, great. If not, we'll just skip over it.
Okay. All right, we actually have the citizens forum scheduled. There are no citizens here, and we have no correspondence from citizens, so there's nothing to read. So we're going to go ahead and move into the budget work session.
So at the back of your packets from Carolyn is your budget packets for this work session. We put a small agenda at the front so that give you an idea of what we're going to go over. So the first packet you'll have, and I try to paper clip them so they're easy to access, is the budget as we discussed last meeting with the current 25% allocation rate. So that's the full budget packet, highlighting all the mandatories and moving the ones that weren't specifically mandatory to the revisit column. Your second paperclip packet will say budget with 15% allocation. So Jeff and I had talked last week about how could we lessen the load on the enterprise without hurting the general fund too much. So this was just another way to look at it without having to look at rates. The 15% only has printed out the summary sheets and the departments that are specifically affected by cost allocations, which are administration, streets, water, and sewer. So that's why it's a little bit smaller of a packet. The third packet in there will be a health insurance memo we'll discuss after we finish going over the budget. And the final packet is water and sewer rates. Jeff had also asked how it would look for the rates for the next 2 fiscal years if we were to do a 25% increase each year. And then the third page in that packet also would show how that increase would look on an average bill for what expectations somebody would have.
Can we also put on there public utility tax? We didn't discuss that at our last meeting.
Yeah, we can add that. So I don't know if you want to first dig in to the operating budget with the 25% so you can see the changes with the mandatories and the revisit. First two sheets are going to give you the overview. Oh, wow, it's printed with the reference numbers.
Yeah.
I was just trying to tell you that, yeah.
Can't even get to it over here. Uh-oh. I can send them to you once. I wonder if it wasn't wide enough, maybe.
I think so.
Okay. I can email them out so you can at least see the 2 summary pages so that the numbers are there and not the references, because this, not being able to see the transfer is not going to help. Unless you want, I can run back next door and print some. Okay.
Darn Excel.
But so the first couple sheets are the revenues, which were pages 1 through 6. No changes were made to that. If you look at page 7, this is A10 legislative expense. The yellow highlights are the mandatory items, and you see we've added the new revisit column for things that we didn't specifically think were mandatory. So you could still at least see what was being asked for and not specifically if we don't get it this year. The bottom still has all the breakdown of expenses and explanations. The ones highlighted just go with the mandatory ones above it.
Can you go back a second? You've got
Yep.
salaries up there.
Yeah, for the council.
Oh, okay, that's for the council of 5. Okay,
Yeah, that's the increase.
okay.
All right. Page 8 is just a breakdown so you could see the council of 5 costs by themselves.
that was something the council asked, if you wanted to just see sort of a quick overview of what expenses would be related to the council file.
Which page is that?
Page 8.
8. So is that something we're able to put up online so people can see that?
Yeah.
Because that's pretty much a given. We don't have a choice on that, so.
You can post it, Carolyn.
Except for the items that's in the revisit section, whether or not you would consider those to be definite expenses or whether you have a different amount than what's shown there.
With those numbers, the revisit, is that included in your first two sheets? Or is that not included, or do we need to add that in? That is included?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a summary of taking the numbers out of A10 budget, which is normally the council budget,
Yep.
and A92.
Okay. Okay.
I feel like it's missing.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a
Two
couple
lines
lines
missing.
there related to A92, but some,
In the page 8, and the total is missing.
It's that Excel, I'm telling you.
I know.
Causes problems.
All right, A70 had no changes except to move the contract services to the revisit for the extra that was requested this year.
That's a pass-through, or is that for the comp plan? What was
That was for the comp plan. Was that for
There
also
was like a wide printer or something?
the scanner, the wide scanner, and consulting fees, I think, were
And
the,
that's included
in the revisit only column. So like the
but if we look at
normal,
the front of here, is it on here too?
yeah.
Okay.
It would be under the A70 total. Everything but the revisit. This revisit column is nowhere in the summary.
All right, so going back to the previous page, the revisit for legal
A10.
fees, page 8.
For council.
Yeah, they are not in the summary, because those are things that may not happen because we're trying to go on a baseline from FY20. These were things we discussed that we could possibly revisit maybe in December, should the need arise where revenues are looking better than we expected.
All right, so then let's go back to page 7 where this actually starts.
All right, which page, 7?
Because I think this is when we need to start making some decisions, right? If what you're saying is anything that's in the revisit column
Is not accounted for.
is not
in this-
accounted for.
Yeah.
Okay? So legislative expense,
So that was just for the volunteer appreciation dinner to do a different menu. The QATC TV was for broadcasting all episodes for the council meetings.
so my opinion on the volunteer dinner is let's leave it as it was. We can actually revisit that, so I don't think you need to add that. QAC TV for council meetings, I'm in favor of doing that. I get that it's an extra expense, but I think this is a very valuable thing. So I'm okay with leaving that in there and adding it to wherever you're going to add it to. Guys?
Your opinion?
That's fine. I mean, it's outside funded too, anyway.
Well, it's outside funded right now. It's not outside funded after that. That's why it's in the budget.
That's fine. Where do you want to put that?
Well, that would cover us for the year, but we'd have to see it in the summary so it would, you could see the entire budget, we'd have to move it to the 21 budget instead of the revisit.
Okay.
So the current funding we have will take us till the end of the budget cycle? The budget
current-
year?
End of the budget year, I believe so, right?
3 more meetings.
Yeah.
We'll be in July after that.
Won't take us all the way to the end of this current
First
fiscal year.
meeting in June. It'll take us to the first meeting in June,
So we're missing one meeting?
Hopefully we only have one in June,
hopefully.
right? Yeah.
So we've got to find somewhere to do that then, too.
Yep. I mean, typically what we've done is once we've passed the budget, we don't have a second meeting in June. At least that's what we've done in the past.
I mean, I'm okay with leaving that in, especially with the way the climate is right now, that nobody can come to a meeting. It's like they need to be able to see what's going on, so I don't have a problem with that.
I've had a lot of good compliments on seeing it online.
I believe our last meeting had over 1,000 viewers.
Yeah, it was like 1,200 or something like
Wow,
that.
wow.
What's dues and subscriptions that revisit?
So that would be
And
if
times.
we have an increase in costs in the MML fees
Okay.
for two new
So I think you need
councils.
to include that.
Yeah,
I would almost say that that's one of the ones that should be in the yellow, because we,
Don't have
we're not
a
gonna
choice.
not be at MML, we're not gonna not be members of MML.
Okay. Yes, page 9 would be the next, which is planning and zoning. The only thing is the contract services revisit of 9550.
I think we should pull out the planning commission, comp plan part. I don't know what that was, how you broke that down. I don't think it's the full 9550, but I think that shouldn't necessarily be in there. I'm not sure about this printer or not. I don't know how my colleagues feel about that, or, I don't know if I know enough about it to put it in.
No, it's not a printer. It's to scan our plans. It's a large format scanner
Okay.
to scan in our years and years of plans that
I
we
think
have.
that's one we should revisit. So that, yeah.
So that includes both those in there?
Huh?
The 95 is both,
Yep,
the plan and?
and the scanner. All right, A81, just had two mandatories, which was the valuation and property tax increase and the liability insurance increase, so no revisits for A81. All right, A92 starts page 11 through 13.
So the Independence Day, that would be for the fireworks that are going to be in June of 2022. Is that 2021, right? Is that right? I think we should revisit that. I don't think we should put that in right now. Career development?
That was just the salary adjustment that Steve had talked about in
So go back up, you're gonna pull the full 5,000 out? or
No,
you're
no,
gonna do
just the
25?
revisit, the
2,500.
2,500.
the
That's like in
2,500.
addition.
I'll keep that, anything you say, keep in the revisit.
That's above and beyond, right?
Yeah, that's
It's not
keeping the
inclusive.
fireworks
Yeah.
and then the extra
Yeah.
amount for the.
The 5 will
Ferris
stay,
wheel.
the 25 will stay in the revisit
Yeah,
column.
that's fine.
And again, that could be revisited. We could see how things are in December when we make the decision
Yeah, we could
to
look
do
back
it.
in December if revenues are looking good.
Okay.
Well, I guess we need to go back a little bit, because we've got Christmas parade expenses, we've got 2,074 is what we actually spent. We got 2,300 budgeted, so we're actually under budget, so. The way that things are right now, we need to look at every line item and figure out.
So what were the special events?
wanna cut
Let's
it?
go up a couple more lines, right? Special events. If we only did
And if we
$2,000
only
worth,
spent $2,000.
there's
right?
3,000 we could pull out of right
I
there.
budget 2,300.
Special events is the movie night. And I'd have to look to see what the rest is in there. I can't think of what it is.
Why don't we leave that at 2040?
Well, just round it off and make it 2,100 even. Right?
Why the massive jump in operating supplies from 3577 to 11?
The 3,500 is what's spent to date, so there's still,
Oh, that's out of your, okay, gotcha.
yeah.
That's just to give you a picture of where you are currently,
Just want to make sure.
compared to the budget number.
So, I mean, we almost need to go back to the beginning and start looking at everything line by line right now, personally.
All right, page 7, back to A10. Most of these are Council of 5 related, so there's not much wiggle room, I don't think. The only one you could possibly look at is A10, 6610, where your donations and
Well, I
appropriations.
thought we had discussed that at the last meeting, we were gonna look at that.
Yeah, there wasn't anything definitive, just that was a line you guys would discuss at the next meeting.
So what if we put that at 3,000 and then put 3,000 at the revisit to see?
We can do that. And the rest are mandatory or ones we already discussed. A70.
All right, so the A70 contract services, we said we're going to leave that in revisit, right?
Yep, leave that in the revisit.
Yeah, but I guess the issue is right now, we've only spent 19,200. So how much do we really need in there?
I'm going to defer to Steve on that one.
But I thought you already said you were gonna just hold off and not include the 9,550.
Right, but if we included the
It will stay
90,
in the revisit column for,
right, what he's saying though is that as of now, we've only spent 19,000 out of a budget of 40,500.
Spend less than half that amount of money currently.
most of that should be related to our planning consultant, you know.
Yeah, and his last invoice, I believe, was for January.
Yeah, we still have a couple months
So we
out.
still have 6 months worth of bills. He's about 35 a year. And that's
35,000.
straight, not with, because he does a certain amount for up to 15 hours, and then over that is another rate.
So if we don't have a lot that's happening, he might be able to actually do the comp plan if there's not any applications coming in or other things, maybe, I don't know.
I think Chris's idea was to try to get as much information out online without costing, you know,
Right.
a lot of money, trying to stay within our existing budget. So,
So if we move the number from 40,500 down to 35, right, you're saving 5,500. Is that,
feasible?
I mean, at this point, you're trying to reduce some of the
what do we-
existing numbers?
what are we
Or you're
averaging?
just trying to vote on the extras that were.
I thought it was the extras, but then Jeff wanted to go back and go through.
I mean, the way things are right now, we need to look at line by line to make sure if there's anything that we can push out into the revisit column, we can.
Right, and I think, you know, our goal would be any line item in the budget, we're gonna look at anything we can from here on out to try to save the money. And that money would be something that you would use later to look at maybe some revisiting figures that you're not approving tonight. That's how I envisioned that you were gonna do
I
it.
think that makes sense.
As opposed to trying to sit tonight and say, we can or cannot reduce one of these budget line items in the existing budget.
Well, I mean, we only have a certain amount of work sessions, so it's like, we gotta get into this stuff now. We can't just keep saying, okay, we're gonna revisit. No, we need to cut and go through right now and figure out what it is, so Karen can put it together for us, so come back next week when we do it and look at everything. I mean, if we're not spending money in certain areas, we need to look at that.
But what he's saying though is that
I don't
contract
think the
services,
staff is prepared tonight to just tell you, yes, we can cut 5,000 off that line item. We haven't looked at the budget from that perspective to prepare for tonight.
right, so the line right there for contract services for 19,240 as of 4/13, that's actually,
Through January, because
you're several months behind. So by
He
the time
usually
you
sends
pay
like
that,
a
by the
quarter,
time you
3
pay that
months.
bill in June, it'll be 35,000, if not more than that at least, right? So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Usually we get every 3 months, we get a bill for that.
yeah. I don't think that's one that we can change.
And is this stuff that's reimbursable?
Some of
Some
it
of it.
is, some of it
I
is.
mean, are we charging for reviews and stuff like that for his
For some
services?
things, yes.
If it's related to a project, it gets,
The line under it shows what's reimbursable of the,
Now, the bulk of his salary that goes under this line item is related to working on the, the plans, not the review plans, but working on policies and plans related to like the comp plan. When we were working on the sign ordinance, that was an example of something that he was involved with.
And we did we changed around some of the plantings and the trees, and we basically have him on retainer, right, a certain amount of hours every month, because statute, we need to have a planner. It's much cheaper to have him as a contractor than to hire a full-time planner, especially for the amount of stuff that we're seeing right now.
So, I mean, for instance, the 9,550, I mean, if the council wants to just take that off the table and not even consider it to be a revisit item later on, I mean, we could do that.
No, I think we should leave it in the revisit column, because we don't know what's going to happen come next year. If things are still bad, then we just leave it, because the comp plan is one that's going to have to be revisited at some point. And I think if we revisit it, we just push it out there, much like parking study, right? We've had it in the budget for many years and we just keep pushing it out. This is kind of my idea is that this revisit is a kind of a mini halfway through the year or whatever it is through the year, we can kind of readjust. All right.
Okay.
Anything you had on A81, which was municipal building? Page 10, sorry.
Nope.
So, got water and sewer showing here on FY 2020, and we got nothing.
So what I do, because it's, we don't pay the bill essentially, I post the journal at the end of the year for all the charges. So in June, I'll do one journal entry to post the charges, just so we can see the cost.
Okay, so we're back to page 11.
All right.
So are we leaving special events at 5,000 as it was budgeted? Because we do still have a few more months left in case, right? If the plan is to leave it as is, right?
I don't think there's really going to be any special events between now and July. That's going to be a large public gathering, to tell you the truth, so I would.
Right, but that's this budget year, that's not next budget year. So
Well,
if
you can go
we
into the
budgeted 5,000 for it, then we'll actually have almost $3,000 left over that can go back into the general fund that's not budgeted, that, we could hold on to or contingency for, if we don't get the revenues we need.
I think it needs to go in the revisit column.
How much?
Well, we're looking at 2,000, so 2,100, subtract that from the 5,000, so 2,900.
29?
Or do 25, split it down the middle, do 2,500 and 2,500.
Okay.
And then you can come back later on to see how things are, and
Okay.
so the salaries. We need to make a hard decision right now, and my personal opinion is we freeze everything that way and everything stays the way it is until we can see what the funding looks like later on down the road, and we can do something then, but as I said previously, I don't think it's fair to be giving out pay raises when other people are out here don't have jobs.
But, one of the things we've done, I'm keeping a kind of running tally here, we're actually less, we've already cut out, way more than.
I understand that, but I'm not willing to give any type of pay raises or anything like that currently with the way the climate is.
Are you talking about the salary line or the salary adjustment line?
Career development salary
Okay,
adjustments.
all right, I just want to make sure.
I'm a yes with that.
With what?
A yes with putting it into budget, 3485.
I'm not comfortable with giving raises until we know where we're at.
I mean, if we come back in and, July, August, September, or whatever, when we look at the revenues and the revenues are coming back as they should, then I don't have a problem revisiting that. But currently, I don't think it's fair to be giving pay raises when I said other people don't have jobs and aren't working. That's not fair. So, that's my opinion.
All right, is there anything else on that page?
So are we in agreement we're going to freeze?
Freeze it.
Tim's saying no, I'm saying yes.
Freeze it.
So we're freezing right now. But they can go in the revisit column and we'll look at them later on down the road. And you good with, you understand? Anything salary?
I put those, anything, career ladder, everything, we moved to revisit.
It's got to be fiscally responsible. I mean, you can't, if
We
it's not
moved-
coming in,
yeah,
you can't.
I think every department you'll see a revisit for, or at least most of them, so it's there, it's just for a later time possibly.
But I'm looking at a salary right now, and I'm seeing, even though it's minuscule, it's still an increase.
So the increase was, there was a career ladder last fiscal year that wasn't a full year.
Okay, well, we need a note on that saying that that's
Okay.
why that went up,
Okay,
if you don't mind.
yep.
And then, of course, any of the, the health insurance and all that stuff we've already approved, so that kind of stuff just need to be notated on the side that we.
Page 12, the two mandatories were our audit fees, which go up minimally each year, and of course, the liability insurance. Anything else that was increased is in the revisit line for.
What's
later
the
date.
advertising increase?
That was the Council of Five thing?
We're going to have advertisements that are going to be, we're going to have increased advertisements because of the Council of Five?
Yes, because the Council of Five Advisory Committee asked for marketing and promotions for the Council of Five.
All right, so that revisit 1,000 is one that needs to get put into the budget. Right? Is that what we're saying?
Based on the committee's request to have this done. So it's up to the council.
I think we should put it in.
I mean, that's an important,
It needs to be highlighted
yeah,
and notated.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll highlight anything you put mandatory now.
yeah, let's do that.
Contract services, professional fees, that's going up by 4,900. What is that?
Scanner,
That's the, this portion, 892's portion of the scanner, that was the agenda software. I think that might have, that was, may have
that
been it.
Revisit then, right? Economic development, I think that that was decided it was going to stay at 25.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we revisit later on, depending on. We drop the legal fees down.
yep, we left the 20,000 from the 20 budget and then the 7,500 for revisit.
Postage?
And this particular one is, is one where you see the current expenditure is over the existing budget because of all the additional legal expenses during,
Right.
during this fiscal year.
Yep.
And it was reduced last year.
I just, my concern there for legal fees is we've got 2 new council members coming in that are going to need more. And where's the budget going to come from? I get it if we're going to have to do a budget amendment in the future, but we rely pretty heavily on our attorney, especially when new people come in. So if we want to leave the 7,500 in the revisit column, I'm okay with that now.
I say we leave it as is. The Council of Five is not really going to be in effect until October.
Yep.
So, I mean, hopefully we should have some kind of clarity on where the budget's going to go at that time, so.
Okay. Leave the postage, charging station.
So that was just, when we originally put it in the budget last year, it was based on an estimate because we had one bill. Now we've seen a series of bills. It was a little higher than expected, so we were just increasing it a little bit to go in line with the spending that's already happened for the usage of it.
At least you have some kind of baseline for that.
All right, so that's going to be, that's kind of one that we need to add in there, right? If we're going to have the charging stations, we got to pay for the electricity.
Correct.
Okay.
I would think, yes, but we're just,
So that's one that's going out of revisit into the actual.
with your okay, yes.
Yeah, we gotta keep that, especially if you have baseline numbers already. It's not a guess.
So that has to be highlighted then.
Yep. I'll change the highlights on the next week for the ones we moved.
And then the supply is going up now?
Apply for it.
Yes. The supply charge is split between all departments.
So that has to go up too?
Yeah, we've already spent higher than we budgeted, so.
I'd be interested to get, like statistics from the charging company, how many people we've had. I mean, if this is showing actual usage, right, we're paying for usage, then it's pretty interesting to see like how often people are using it. I wonder if they can tell, if they'll be able to give us data on where's the usage coming
that I
from.
don't know.
Is it coming from actual economic development, or is it coming from people who live down the street that are going to plug it in the middle of the night?
Yeah,
So far, that's
what it's been.
what it seems like. It's people living down the street pulling in. It's not from people coming to town to do shopping or going to the restaurants or what have you.
Do you know if we can get data from the company, if they'll provide that for us?
They may be able to tell us, we may be able to
Can I talk with you about that? Because I'll see if I'll put some time in to see if we can get some of that. I think, because that's interesting, that'd be interesting to get, right? If we're spending this amount of money every year for economic development and we're getting zero out of it, maybe it doesn't make sense to have it, right?
And this, one other thing that ties into this is with Kenny's folks and having somebody that's taking care of the parking, writing the tickets and stuff, that'll make a big difference with this. So, if they're not putting the money in the meter, they get a ticket. And that's kind of the way it's been since we put these things in, that Kenny hasn't had the personnel to be able to enforce the parking with it. And these 3 parking places are the ones that need it the most.
Yep.
Is there a way for us to do a charge after a certain period of time? Because like if you're coming here to use the restaurants close at 9 or 10, 11 o'clock at night. So if a car's sitting there at 11:30 at night till 5 o'clock in the morning, they're not doing any economic development in this town.
That's a question for Kenny, but you are absolutely correct.
So why don't I take that as an item? I'll look into all of that stuff, right? I mean, economic development is an important thing, but if we're subsidizing a local person or persons who are just charging it, getting free electricity, that's not the reason that we put that in there.
Correct.
Okay. All right, that's,
So you look into that too to see whether there's.
yeah.
Everything else for A92, what's left is liability insurance, which is mandatory. So page 14 starts us with B10, Police Department.
What's the meters operating supplies?
The replacement of heads for the parking meters, such like that, right, Kenny?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what the question was.
Meters operating supplies?
That
Meters,
replacement.
operating supplies is for the parking meters.
I think
And we really haven't spent a whole lot because kind of waiting to see what direction we're going to go, waiting for the construction to finish up. And then,
You're talking about replacement though, right?
yeah, that's replacement heads and all the parts that go along with it, batteries to run it and everything else.
Yeah, so I think we should just leave that at 3,000 now and revisit that in the fall.
All right, the salary line has the reduction or the freeze in the parking enforcement officer, so we pulled that out of salary and moved it to revisit for a later time.
Okay.
Career development was the same way. I don't know if you have anything, Kenny, about.
So I want to address the career development. There are 3 officers that are slated for promotion. These are not raises. These are promotion that are to take effect this year. These are basically unwritten contracts that we have with our personnel when they come on board, that at given intervals, they get a promotion, as long as it's based on their supervisor's recommendation. So these are not raises just for the sake of giving raises. These are actual promotions. So they go from officer to officer first class and then corporal. So that's what these are. There are 3 that are slated. One is November the 1st and 2 are sometime in January. If we freeze that, we ultimately will get salary compression, meaning however long it's frozen, the officers that are behind these folks that are slated to get promoted will catch up to them. So now you're going to have officers that have been on a longer period of time, or you have officers that have been on for a shorter period of time are going to catch up to the officers for a longer period of time, and they're all making the same amount of money. So, in essence, what we're doing is, like I said, you're going to have salary compression, but what we're also going to do is going to destroy morale. Because basically, we told these folks, when you signed on with us, you know, you can expect certain things from us. This is a recruitment and a retention tool. And it's not just our police department, it's every police department. You know, sheriff's office is the same way. Deputy to DFC, state police is trooper to TFC on up to, these are given promotions, time and grade promotions. So when we took out the parking enforcement officer position, which left, that was 19,700, and I think this career development or these promotions comes out to 6698. Is that right?
Yep.
So with that, we're still 13,000 under what we had for last year.
Kenny, and I would also just like to add that the career development, you know, roughly, not just the police department, but it's in all of our departments, because the career ladder matrix was used as a recruitment and retention tool. So for all of the departments, you know, certain employees, if they are certain departments, if they, you know, get certain certifications, like through water, wastewater, they have to go and take a test, and they pass, and they get their, you know, or they get their CDL license. You know, these are things that we've kind of, as a retention and recruitment tool, we've told employees, look, you make these commitments, you reach these, you know, markers, and you have that, you know, you have that ability to get promotion. But I just wanted to kind of add in that
That's been like the theme of our whole, you know, discussion today, really about talking about employees and who stays and who doesn't, and doing the right thing by them, and you know, how can we attract better people and stay longer and all that kind of stuff too. So, I mean, with freezing the rest of it, like you said, Ken, I mean, you're still, I don't have an issue. I mean, people earn their money, and being able to freeze the one position to free up other money to give it to the people who are already here, to make sure that you can retain your staff. I mean, I don't have an issue with that.
You know, and ultimately, I think if you take into consideration the bigger picture, it has a ripple effect. Because when you're trying to hire people, they're going to say, well, you know, the guys that were here or gals that were here, it's going to really be a detriment to their morale.
That's a reputation issue at that point.
And then the people are going to say, it's going to have the ripple effect. They're going to say, well, you know what, I don't know if I want to go to Centreville. Because even though they say this,
So I'm a yes with that.
I mean, it's in the industry too, you know, right? It's retaining good people, and if they've earned it, then they earned it. And I'm good.
I don't have an issue with retaining people, but you and I both know, we've worked in this governmental business for a long time. There have been times when things have been frozen because of finances. I mean, it happened in the state police, it happened in the city of Annapolis. Stuff was frozen for periods of time. So, I mean...
Yeah, but I guess in my position with state police, when you had a given rank, when you had a promotion to a given rank, state police, when I was there, was only TFC, trooper to TFC. Now they have 2 or 3 more. You got that position. That wasn't a tested position where a corporal and sergeant was. That was a given rank, and you got the associated money that went along with it. Now, they took other steps, like furlough days and however that worked. I'm not sure. And this is the same thing. A corporal in the Centreville Police Department is basically a senior patrol officer, and we recognize them for that. And that's why this was built in, I don't know, 10 years ago or 8 years ago, whatever it was, is to recognize the commitment that our officers had, and we pushed it down. So that would be my
I understand that, but I'm just saying, to say that stuff hasn't been frozen before and other things is not true, because in government they do it all the time based on what's going on in the climate. And right now we're in an extraordinary time where we're in a state of emergency. I don't have an issue for the promotions that are pretty much guaranteed, but I do have an issue with salary increases and stuff like that. So I would like to see that. I don't know how it can be done, but it should be pulled out somewhere where a promotion should be on a separate line item. That's an automatic almost. That's not a, I understand what it says here.
So Jeff, just to clarify, is it more of like the career ladder promotions being different than like salary adjustments? So career ladder promotions, which that's, you know, the matrices that were created years ago, kind of include the police department, the, you know, finance department, streets department, you know, those would be considered like the promotions for which they've earned based on this career ladder.
Yeah.
And then you have your salary adjustments are more of just recommendations based on performance or going above and beyond.
About
Or,
promotions, not salary raises or
Okay.
just, you know, you did a great job, so now we're going to pay you 17
Right.
bucks an hour versus 50.
well, I just wanted to make sure that there was clarification because it's not just the police department that also have those promotions that are earned, but also in all of the departments, if they're following the career ladder, you know, there's certain requirements that they have to obtain. And if those employees, you know, reach those sort of, get those certificates, reach those criteria, I just want to make sure that they're also included.
And that's us holding up our end of the bargain too, right? So we say if you come work for the town
Yeah.
and you better yourself, we're gonna hold up our end of the bargain by, you know, thanking you by paying you accordingly.
Correct.
And that's-
It's a recruiting tool.
Right. And it's a retention tool, really, is the biggest
Absolutely.
thing. It's
Because
not more about recruiting, it's about retention and keeping the good people that we have.
Right.
I mean,
And it gives
That's
people an
above and beyond.
opportunity for individual growth and development. So they're in control.
well, they have
of-
incentive, right?
Exactly.
And they know that their employer cares about them, which is the number one retention tool of anything. You can screw up 1,000 times, but if you know that they have your back and they're going to give you an opportunity to better yourself, then you're
Hmm.
going to work just as hard or harder to keep that. So I'm all about that system.
Okay. I just want to get the clarification, make sure I understood correctly too.
So if that's a yes, then should we go back to the other one and revisit that one as well?
The other one.
I think the other one was just
previous
a
one
salary.
Was
Was
not
salary.
related to the career development.
Right.
It's under that label, because in the past, we always just put it all together
Yep.
in that one category, but going forward, it sounds like the request is to separate it out.
And just to clarify too, like the other departments, they're estimates. So I provide an estimate if they obtain those certifications at this time when they're eligible after probation, this is how much it would roughly be. So it's kind of like a placeholder in case during that fiscal year they do obtain it.
So I'm good with the freeze on the meter personnel and then keeping your promotion staff
I appreciate that.
there.
And did you give a okay on that? Since Jeff.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
I just want to make sure I had to.
Yep.
So you're gonna add that back in?
Yep.
And show that as the
I'll
three,
highlight it as
the
mandatory.
three promotions that are,
Good with that?
yeah, I mean, I'm okay with that. I just want people to understand where everything's coming
Sure,
from.
no.
And,
I just want to make sure we hold up our end of the bargain.
you know, one of the
for
other
stuff we've
issues you
already-
gotta look at too is, right now, the way things are going is, there might be some jurisdictions that start looking at, like Kenny said, furloughs. There might be people that look at reduction and stuff too. So, I mean, that's stuff you gotta understand. I mean, depending on what happens with the finances and the way the money starts coming in next fiscal year, it might be something you have to look at. So, yeah, I mean, believe me, I'd like to give everybody everything I can, but that's just not reality right now. So I want people to understand that, you know, there's other things that can be done, you know, and I can tell you, in previous years where I worked, you know, we gave up money to get people and we never got the people. So it's like sometimes you don't, you know, they did freezes, they did layoffs, they did furloughs. I mean, that stuff can happen and we don't know where this climate's going to take us right now. So just, I want everybody to understand that. Nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows what's going to happen, so. So you put that back in with the notation. Okay.
The only increase that's not mandatory in B10 that he is asking for was postage of $75. Try to get more in line with where his spending has been.
And
So
what is
right-
that?
I'm sorry.
What's
Postage.
the postage, the increase, and why is it?
It increased because we sold stuff on auction. We got rid of excess and surplus equipment, old equipment and auction. And it's kind of a misnomer because we charged in the auction, we charged them for shipping, but we ultimately had to pay, when I had to code it, to pay for the shipping, it had to go somewhere. So we recouped the money, but I think,
You just don't
in
see
essence, it had to show,
Still gotta have a line item for it.
that's right.
Let's just leave that as revisit for the future.
All right, that's all I have on B10 unless you have any other questions. All right, B22 is your Goodwill Volunteer Fire Company, 45,000.
Can, you have one item here that's highlighted that says grant funding. Can we get that in a different highlight color? Anything that's grant funded?
What page are you, oh, yeah, the,
16.
yeah.
So any line that shows up as a grant should be a different color. That way it stands out that it's not money that we're paying for out of our stuff, it's money that's grant
Yep.
related, please.
I'll do your.
All right, B22, anything on that one?
Goodwill?
Yep. Next is page 18 to 20, which is Streets Department.
So on that first item, the 9851, the new number just related to career development only, like we just got finished discussing with the police department, is 7,319. So if you want to substitute that number from the other number.
So it's not 9851 and 7319?
7319 is the career development only.
The other
All right, I'm
portion
good with
was from
that.
the salary adjustment request.
It's 2532.
All right, so we put I'm in favor of the 7319.
So is this one of the ones you're talking about that's a
That's just a,
projection?
it's a projection.
But this is all merit-based, right? It's not,
It's all on the career ladder, so if those employees do fulfill their,
it's up in the air
certifications.
regardless.
So we have to budget for the
Right.
best case scenario that they achieve all those benchmarks.
Hope they do.
I hope so
Helps us
too.
out.
So we're gonna break out career development and salary adjustments. We're gonna make those two separate lines. then.
Right, we'll do that separately.
Okay.
But the 7,319 is what is the career development portion of that number you see there.
Got it.
Okay. Just make sure you highlight it and notate.
Do I have two okays for it?
Yeah.
All right, and then the 2532 will leave as a revisit in the salary adjustment.
Yep.
Uniforms?
That was just.
Can we go back a second? We got health insurance. We have a large or negative there from one
So
year to
that's
the
The
next.
rebate?
Well, it's based on employee or personnel. So when we have personnel turnover, their enrollment plan may change. And so, one employee may have family, then separate, and then the new employee comes in and it's individual. Which kind of what occurred last year when we were short-staffed, like 4 vacancies, and then when we filled them, they were,
You budget for the most expensive plan.
yes, I budget for the most
cost.
expensive plan.
Yep.
Yeah, but look at the line item. Look at 20 and look at 21. 21 is $14,598 less than 20.
He does have a few people that waive the insurance altogether now.
Yes.
I just want to make sure. I mean, that's something that we've got to pay no matter what. So I just want to make sure it reflects
We can double
as
check.
true as we can get to.
I try to make it as true as possible with the staff that we have, so.
Okay.
And any
Positions
vacancies.
that we've authorized.
Correct, and any vacancies are rated at the full rate.
Right, okay. What did we decide on the uniforms?
Where are you? Next
Right below
page.
that?
No.
18,000.
Oh, there it is.
Kip, I forgot what we discussed on this last time.
Wasn't it for the
Was it like cleaning service?
No, with Public Works, we buy them their uniforms. They clean them themselves. We got away from the whole rental thing and them, and a company cleaning it and all. It's actually saved us a whole lot of money. This was just because we had so many vacancies this past calendar year that I've got a whole bunch of new staff I have to buy uniforms for.
You gotta have uniforms, right?
All right, so that 1,000 we need to add back in.
Put it back in there.
I would greatly appreciate it, yes.
But I mean, we're looking at 2,000 right now, and we're only at $220 total in this fiscal year, so.
Like I said, we had so many vacancies last year as we filled them, and because we even filled some of those positions and lost some of those new people, so we didn't buy uniforms. We don't buy them until they pass their 6-month,
Do you have a bunch of people coming up on 6 month?
Yes,
yes.
we have about 4.
So, and that's the reason it didn't get spent last year. But we've got a good crew now, a good bunch of people. They seem to be happy, and it's not like we've seen in the past where all of a sudden you lose one and another, and they're like a line going out the door. So.
All right, so are we good with 3,000?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, people gotta have uniforms. I mean, especially since you're at a 6-month mark, I mean, it's not like they were here for 30 days or something.
No.
I've lost many a uniform in my day, I understand. Like, just wear a black t-shirt, it's fine, we'll figure it out in 6 months.
All right, page 19, you had I had put in for a $5,400 increase in contract services.
What is that?
That was for consulting costs. And
Yes, this is for consulting cost. Engineering falls under some of this, that kind of thing.
And this could be a pump burns up and we need to do some investigation, or, that's not a pump, I'm sorry, this is
No,
gonna be
this
streets.
This is the streets. So.
We've already gone over,
You're talking about like Northbrook, you know, that kind of stuff, consulting, stuff going on where you need to figure
With the
it out?
water, no,
Media?
that water is separate. This is
Oh, it's strictly streets.
strictly streets, sidewalks, those kind of things.
so Kip, you're at 13,872 so far in April, what do you think you're gonna be in June? Are you gonna be at 15, are you gonna be at
I have
17
no
for?
doubt I'll be at probably 15 to 16 by then.
All right, so what if I mean, this is something, we gotta maintain our streets, we've gotta bring in the professionals that are gonna be able to help us with this, so.
And I think I told you folks before, and if I haven't, forgive me. When I give you my budget, I give you a pretty stripped down budget, especially the past 3 years. I'm not asking for any ginormous raises or anything like that. So after 3 years of, as everybody says, go back and sharpen the pencil, there's no pencil left, guys. What I'm putting in here, if I can't stay within the budget to begin with, which is what I gave you, and this is stuff that I have no control over. If something happens out here on, say, one of the intersections of Commerce and Kidwell or something, and we have to bring a consultant in because that's a state highway, and we got to make sure it's right. If you guys want to throw that out the window, hey, that's up to you, but I've done my due diligence to try and show you we've got things we've got to take care of.
I think we need to put it in.
If I don't see you as a guy who likes to fluff numbers. So I would agree with Tim. I want to make sure that you have what you need.
So we're gonna put it to 15?
No, we're gonna add the 54.
Okay, so you're willing to come up with somewhere else, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
all right, so that'll put us at 17.
17.4.
All right, the next revisit would just be the sidewalk revolving, which we can look
Yeah,
at.
we'll push that out.
Yeah, we pushed that out. The bottom two that are revisit are actually ones we had talked about encumbering what he had left from this year.
Yeah, we need to
You're gonna
add
have to go
those,
do
'cause-
those classes anyway, right?
Yeah.
Eventually.
I'm sorry?
You're gonna have to go do those classes and stuff eventually anyway.
Eventually, yeah, to get their continuing ed hours.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to add those in?
They're
Yes?
the ones we're encumbering.
That was a
Whatever we don't,
one-time.
because a
It's
lot
the
of that's
one-time
not gonna get
encumbrance.
All right, so
spent.
the conventions, meeting, and lodging, food, and travel, we don't need the 500 and the 600, we can just leave those as a revisit, and you're still covered.
Same with the safety educate, yep.
Right, because you don't know if you're going to have the meetings this year, right?
Right.
Yeah, right now, a lot of them that are
Everything
coming up
canceled.
have been canceled already, so it's not
All right.
getting spent this year.
Okay.
All right, next department, C22, waste removal. The only increase is the mandatory contracts for trash, recycle, and yard waste. All right,
When is our
22.
trash contract up?
One more.
In 21.
22, 23 is Parks Department.
Can I just go back there one second? If we're interested in relooking at the contract for the waste department, my recommendation is the council needs to start right now. That is a long, Steve and Kip, as you guys remember, long, we didn't think it was going to take that long.
Yeah,
And
I think, if I remember, we started in, like January to try and get it done for the budget, and that didn't happen.
was the
But we've got a
following-
lot of, I feel we got a lot of the bugs worked out with the last go-round and with Dave Julian helping us with the, specifications and stuff for it. My thought is if we start in January
okay.
to have something done for her to have for the budget next year.
Well, I guess
But then it's already up by then, right?
It's up, yes, it's in the end of June in 21, so it would
You'll
go
have almost
into,
6 months to get it done.
So we would need to make decisions on if we're going to re-up them before, if we're going to decide on somebody new.
Right, my hope is to have something to you February, mid-March, for you to approve or whatever it was as far as a new contract to
Okay.
look at.
All right.
Well, I guess my concern is that we've had a lot of issues with this company. We've had a lot of calls where people have said, my trash has been missed. I've watched several times where trash has been thrown in the truck and thrown on the ground, and they don't pick the trash up, it just blows down the street. So I think what I would like to see in the next contract we do is, I don't have a problem with them getting an increase, but you're gonna earn your increase. Just like we expect our employees to earn their promotions, I think if you're not doing the job that you're getting paid for, we're not gonna give you an increase.
Yeah, if that's something that you want rewritten into the contract, then yes, we're gonna have to start right now.
I think
because-
it's something that the
But
town
you also
deserves.
need to realize that the company we had before this company was just as bad. So when you start putting it out for bids and you take the lowest bid out of that bunch,
I'm not asking for the lowest bid. I
No.
don't begrudge anybody making their money and getting their increases, but when you come out and say you're gonna do a certain thing, you're gonna pick up trash in the town, you need to pick up trash in the town. And not picking up trash and people having to call in and say, hey, guess what? It's trash day. My trash is still sitting here. Everybody else's trash has been picked up. Why isn't mine? And then we gotta call the company and say, you gotta send a truck here. Or there's trash on the ground because they throw it in the truck and they don't pick up whatever falls out. That's a problem to me.
I agree.
So I think if we're going to do something like that, and I totally agree, it should all be picked up, we're going to need to add a staff person in there, or put that into our budget, because that's a full-time job.
We don't need a
just-
staff person for that. What I'm saying is, there are budgeted increases every year. If you want your increase, then you provide the service that you said you're going to provide. If you're not providing the service you said you're going to provide, you're not getting your increase. I think that needs to be written into our contract.
I bet if you look at our contract, it probably says that.
Well, then we
That they-
should,
Why are we not upholding it, I guess is the question then. I mean, if it's checks and balances for us, we're paying for something we're not
Does it
getting,
say
then
that
that's
in
on
the
us.
contract? I don't,
Not that I've
I
seen.
don't think I've read that.
It's not in there, okay. All right, well, let's put that at sometime this summer, that we can start looking at that and review the contract, because that's a long, if we're not going to go with those guys, that's a long process.
All right, D10, the first revisit was street decorations, and this was just adding new decorations, so I think this was okay for the revisit.
Yes.
The next line for revisit was the Park Advisory Board. They had requested an increase to 6,500. Last week you had said leave it in the revisit. I don't know if you feel the same this week as well, but right now they'll at least get the 5,000. Okay. The 7440 contract services, the mandatory increase is included in the yellow, and what was above that is what is in the revisit column, which was just consulting. It pays everything else, the porta potties, consultant costs, the medical supplies, and the administration office, stuff like that.
That's the yellow.
The yellow includes just the landscaping.
And what does the revisit include?
The revisit is just things outside. So the 32.5 would include the landscaping and our normal costs. The 2,500 was for increase in any other costs, I believe. It's been so long since we increase in.
So if the porta potty costs a little bit more,
Right, which
gotta pay it.
I don't know that there's an intent right
okay.
now for that.
All right, well, let's
to-
leave that at revisit, and if we have to,
Okay, the final increase requested is the wharf contract service of 4850 increase, which we got the grant funded project last year for the trees and the landscaping. This would ensure that that was properly maintained.
we're already above that this year. And we've got requests in for grants. I mean, we're not sure what's gonna happen, right? I just wonder if, based on what's going on with the governor's budget, if we should leave that as revisit, and if we get it, then that's, kind of
Yeah,
a
yeah,
urgency to put it back in.
So the grants that will come in won't cover this, but yes, we can definitely revisit.
Yeah, I think this covers the plantings that are already
Yeah.
there that we
The
got.
maintenance
Just the
of them.
maintenance.
Just the maintenance of them.
All right, H40 Main Street, the only revisit was the continuing of the new event from last year. If you wanted to put that in the budget this year or revisit at a later time.
Let's revisit that.
H60 Cemetery. The mandatories, the 3780 is the actual 90% of the perpetual care interest earned in ICS. And then the contract service increase was the burial contractor increase in costs. So the only revisit would be operating supplies of 200 based on spending.
Based on what?
Spending, is that right, Kim?
Current expenditure is 235 out of 300.
So the advisory committee, the 3780, is the 90% that's from the perpetual care fund, right?
90% of interest earned.
So that's
In the
something we can't
perpetual.
touch anyway. It can only go towards the cemetery, and it was something
Correct.
we put into the budget based on that before, so.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm a little confused with operating supplies. Our budget was 300, our proposed budget is 500. Shouldn't that proposed budget be 500? And then the column, the difference between should
It
be
should be
zero? and then-
300 until you give me approval for 500.
I know, but if you go based on what all the other sheets are,
The 500 should be a 3.
Yeah. The 500 should be a 3, the difference should be 0, and the 200 should be in the revisit right now.
okay. All right, I think we should leave that at revisit.
Okay.
All right, so that would take the actual proposed budget down, the FY 2021 proposed budget down by $200.
Yep.
$300, right?
Yep.
We'll bring it
200.
down by 200.
$200.
Yep. All right, H90 watershed, the education and training was the encumbrance I just highlighted so you could see it. And the contract service request was for an increase in consultant cost, which is in the revisit of $200.
All right, so again, I'm confused with the budget of 2020 says 2,000, 2021 says 2,000,
Difference should be zero.
but the difference should be zero.
So the 2020 budget, 600. you
No, I'm
would-
looking at the next one down.
No, no.
Not
Oh,
contract
sorry.
services.
Difference should be zero, right? Yeah.
Is that going to give us 500 back in our,
No, that's the difference column. Yes.
okay. All right, so unlike the cemetery, which was a different number in proposed, all right, that's fine.
I would say, based on current expenditures, we're probably fine without the additional 200.
All right, just leave it as revisit, yeah,
Yep.
okay.
All right, there was no changes on 27 and 28, just the revenue pages. So next would be 7, C21 Sewer Department, page 29, 30, and 31.
Now,
32.
hold on. Did we have,
What? So the first request is 6210 operating supplies.
I'm sorry, 1 second. For the C2124, should that also have an anticipated career ladder?
I didn't see one on the list. Is there one for C21, C24?
No?
No, not based on the current staff.
Oh,
That they weren't in a position to get their certifications
okay,
in this upcoming year.
okay.
All right, so operating supplies, we moved to revisit of 2,000. Let me look at that comment. Just more in line with spending and purchase of needed operating supplies. Is that something you can revisit? Or is that something you
I think that's something that we need. I mean, we're already above that.
It goes back to what I was saying before, you know, we cut and cut. I can only do so much, and especially when it comes to water and wastewater. You guys have to tell me, do you want to stay in compliance?
Yes.
And do you want to keep giving them water and sewer service? Then, you know, there's a lot of this I have no control over. So,
Yes.
I guess you go down the next line, I mean, you got 3,000 budgeted for small tools and equipment, and you've only spent $404. Is there a way we can pull 1,000 from that and move it up into operating supplies?
we
And that way
usually
you would
wait
get-
till this time of the year to do something with that. And the main reason is,
As in, you haven't spent what you need to spend yet?
yes, and the thing is that if we have something break down and it has to be replaced, that's always a place that the small tools and equipment can come out of if we need to. But,
But judging by the past, could you move $1,000 out of that up to
yeah,
operating supplies?
yeah, we can move 1,000 out of it.
And then we could leave 1,000 and revisit and
revisit,
put
yeah.
1,000 down on the other column as a
Right.
Yeah,
revisit.
that's better.
Would that work?
Yep, that's fine.
All right,
All right,
so
so, say it again, what's it gonna happen?
So the revisit goes to $1,000?
So move the small tools and equipment will drop to 2,000.
Yep.
You put revisit of 1,000 on that other column, and then you go up to the top and you'll move that to 4,000.
okay.
So the operating supplies is only going up by 1,000,
Yes,
Yes.
even though
And
we're
we're gonna-
already above.
we're gonna revisit.
We'll revisit another 1,000.
All right, next line item with a revisit is uniforms and clothing for $500.
And this is one of this particular department, we've got, you know, one new guy, another new guy's coming into it, hopefully in the next few weeks or month or something. That's kind of why that was put in there. And the uniform and clothing for these guys is split between this wastewater budget and the water budget, so.
Did we give that to you in the streets one as well? We did that one? Yeah, so we need to do that for this one too.
The other thing with the water and wastewater and with the street guys, this is also a safety issue because the uniforms we get are the class 3, high visibility. Their coats and their, shirts. So,
All right. Is that 2 yeses?
Yes.
So yes, we need to notate that somewhere, that just like we give the police officers weapons, we gotta notate somewhere that we need to spend that money because they're required to have this stuff because of what they're doing, so.
All right, page 30. The first revisit was just to the contract services line in the amount of $1,750. I think this is where your sludge removal goes, right?
yes.
But the only difference that we don't have in there now is for the increase in consulting costs.
Right.
What does that 1,750 do, Kip? You was estimating increased cost in contract services?
In contract services, for instance, there's several things included in this. One of them is, as she said, sludge removal. There's $100,000 right there every year. The other thing it is our contracts with our lab to do all the testing that's required of the weekly effluent. Actually, it's twice a week from the wastewater plant. Things of that.
All right, so this is a required thing. I mean, you can't get out of it.
Right.
All right, so we need to add that in.
What's your equipment rental kit?
Equipment rental, that was actually just put in there because we started a line item like this so that I could kind of track easier how much we're spending on equipment rental and if it would behoove us to buy the piece of equipment rather than rent it as much. And that, that's definitely one that can be
Revisit that
revisited. Yeah, that's not a problem.
So what are you doing about the contract services?
I'm a yes. I mean,
155 even.
yeah, this is not something that we can say, well, we don't like your price, or, we're,
Yeah, it is what it is.
gas oil vehicles. I mean, we're already above, almost at budget in April. Even with gas prices going down.
Yeah, why is that, why have we spent so much already this year?
This one I can't explain it.
It was just the spending had increased,
It
just rounding up.
Let's
'Cause
put
you're
that
already
at, let's put that at revisit.
Okay.
yeah, no, that's fine.
But I think the meetings is going to be one that's going to be
Conventions,
important.
Yeah, and that's right back like the other one.
Same thing with the next page, the lodging, food, travel, leave it off for now.
Are those ones that we don't need because they've been encumbered? Is that right?
We
Yeah,
didn't- You didn't say it last week, but we can if you want to do it for this specific.
But that's not going to, if we put the 300 and the 300 in,
These-
that's not going to change the budget because we've already encumbered that.
Right. I'm not gonna add it in as a budget line, I'm gonna have to manually track, yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, page 33 through 36 is water. So the first increase revisit was water and meter expense, which was purchase of the gateway meters that would be needed to use the system that we already have.
to complete the system out. This is definitely one that we can work with. I can't say that we can take the 55 away that we have in there that we proposed, but the 114,000 we can definitely work.
We can look at that later.
Yep.
I just want to say, like, deferring this replacement it's going to come get us at some point, and it's going to all have to be done.
Right. It's going to catch up at some point with us.
If the revenues come back up, then we can look at putting that back in.
Correct.
That's what we're saying.
Gonna happen during COVID.
All right, chemical and lab supplies was a requested increase for 7,500 for increase in supplies needed.
Yeah, now on this one, because it's water, it also, like we were discussing about Northbrook,
Need your media replacement, all that kind of stuff, too, like that?
things, anything. Once we get through this whole thing, and if they make us start feeding the Aquamag, that's another chemical that we haven't been feeding. So that's what comes out of these supplies and stuff, along with the increase that comes every year from the cost of the chemicals.
All right, so I think we need to put that in.
Well, I think what we ought to do is wait and see what the recommendation is, and then you can come back based on the recommendation to say, they're requiring this, now I need this X amount of money to take
Yep.
care of that.
Nope, as long as you understand that.
Yeah, that's fine.
That could happen.
I think also I'd like to see a solid number on that, like a budget. I have no problem saying, hey, if you need it, let's do it. But let's put a solid number on it when they give you a recommendation as far as, hey, this is what it's gonna be, and then we'll be in compliance and
Certainly.
we'll just do that.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem with the unknowns right now.
Yeah,
So,
that's fine.
no
But
problem.
whenever you need it, just come back and say, hey, look, this is the deal, and then we'll just have to
Yep.
tackle it then.
All right, next one is clothing uniforms, same as,
Same
because a
thing,
lot
just
of
split up.
costs are split
That's
between the
fine.
two. All right. Contract services requested increase was 21,925.
And we're already at 58.
And this just says increase in expenses associated with the water issues.
That's the Macron contract and, right, we're not really
Right.
sure what it's gonna be.
So,
So we've already gone over what we budgeted, but that part wasn't even included in that one, in that budget.
nope.
So I
You're
think maybe-
anticipating that's gonna be almost 70,000, almost 70,000?
just something we want to look at, just like the last line item where he says, let's get the hard number and then make a decision. Then
Yeah,
let's just pay
that's,
it.
yeah, because I can't even
You don't know what
begin-
it's going to be.
Nope.
Okay. Well, like you said, when you get that invoice or you get that number, just come back and let us know so we can.
I do just want to caution us, when we see this number at the very end, it's going to say one thing, and then in the future, it's going to be something different, which
Reality's
is
gonna be
probably going to be
something different.
higher, and it's going to skew us.
Can we mark just those couple things in this section that we know we're going to have to pay for, as far as just waiting on the final number before we make a decision on, writing that check or whatever that is?
Okay. All right, next increase, 8110, repairs and maintenance. We are age of equipment and the rising cost to fix them. We're already past the current budget, so the 2,000 was requested as an increase.
And again, this is
Is your Band-Aid money?
yeah, these days, that's what it is. So, when it breaks, we have to fix it. Yeah.
I know that you have pinched pennies and Band-Aided for a long time, and every single year you're Band-Aiding, and I think these are things that you're going to need to fix, and
And that's fine. It's like the pump we talked about at the north pump station. I mean, we pinched that thing so there was nothing, we couldn't get any more out of it, so.
all right, so I'm going to guess on both of those.
Yeah, like I said before, I don't find you as a person that fluffs numbers. If you need something, I want to be able to support you with that. So, and like I said, you're already at 10.3 and 10.3
Right.
again.
Yep.
I'm a yes.
All right, I think the gas, you said we can revisit that one?
Yes.
And the travel expenses again, that kind of goes back in the same.
Yes.
Those are the ones that are encumbered?
Okay.
All right, the final is C25, the farm. Outside of mandatory, the only increase is for contractors, contract services, which was the age of some of the buildings, the stuff out there, Kip,
The age of the pivots and the spray
and
equipment
the
and
cost
stuff.
to,
Cost to keep it going.
But this is, the farm has a, and we're bringing in more money than we're spending on the farm, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
get rent.
All right, so I think we need to have that, right? These are things to maintain and keep our,
Keep your spray field
professionals, right?
rolling, right?
Keep the spray field
Yeah.
going.
all right, so I think we need to have that in the budget.
All right, so 6 in the budget and nothing in the revisit.
We're talking about contractors farm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
3,500?
yep. All right, so that is the end of the 25%. I will get you better bottom line numbers on the summary sheet. My apologies for the reference ratings. The only difference really between this and the 25% and the 15 are the allocations. I don't know if you guys want to decide if you want to stick with 25 or if you want to think about lowering it, but that would help me merge for one budget at next meeting.
I'm at 25. I mean, I think it needs to be actually more than 25, and I think this is just kicking the can down the road even longer. So it's not going to be pretty either way, but I think that if we go down to 15, it's setting a false picture. We lowered it last year from 40 to 25 because we wanted to make the budget work.
Right.
And I just think that that's not a good way to be doing it.
Do I have a second for 25?
You can't keep kicking, like you said, you can't keep kicking the can down the road, but you got to do what you got to do. So, I mean, it's fine.
I'll prep one budget next week at 25% with all the things that we discussed tonight. And then we could revisit anything outside to look at if you wanted at that point.
I'm not trying to kick the can down the road right now, but the way things are, I mean, we can always revisit it. But right now,
I get it. I just think going from 25 to, going from 40 down to 25 to make it work, now down to 15, it's just, the money's got to come from somewhere. And I think from an accounting standpoint, you really should be showing the true cost of what the general fund, what the administrative workers do for the enterprise fund. And even in bad years, it's, especially in bad years.
All right, if there's no other questions, oh, go ahead.
realize you're gonna have a $607,100 deficit. Realize that.
I do realize that, and I think that we should
I
have taken
understand
care
you
of that.
realize that. I'm letting Josh know because he hasn't been involved in this before. It's like, this is why these things were done before. The money's coming from somewhere no matter what.
I understand that. I fully understand that.
What do you want to do, Jeff?
I think for the time that we have right now, we need to look at lowering that to make everything manageable. And like I said, when everything comes back to some kind of normalcy, you can look at it again. And
Lower it to what? What's your number? What's your percent?
15.
I said 15 at first. That still gives us a deficit of $339,000.
Then you want to do what? Look at the revisit, just like we're treating the rest of the budget, and say, if it starts to come back around, then you go back to 20, 25?
Yeah, because you can look at the revenues then and see what they're looking like. I mean,
It's never going to happen. Because we've had really good revenues this year. We could have done it this year and said, oh, you know what? We set it for 25% last year. Things are going great. Let's say it was December. Maybe we should make that allocation different. That's just never going to happen. I think that just from an accounting standpoint, these funds need to be separate. The enterprise fund needs to pay for the employees that it uses. And by just saying, we've got a bad hole this year, I've heard that for the past 8 years. We've got a bad hole this year, let's just make it 15%. There are certain ratepayers who don't necessarily pay water and sewer, and now their property taxes are going to be going towards, or a larger share of their property taxes are going towards water and sewer fees that aren't necessarily allocated directly to them. I just don't think that it's fair. I get that it's a tough decision that we're going to have to make, but this is why we're up here. We can't keep doing this every single year over and over and over again. 25% I think is even lower, but I'll settle on it because we're in a really tough time this year.
You're the tiebreaker.
I mean, to me, it's all about circumstance, right? So you're looking at unusual circumstances. This is not a normal year. This is not normal influx of cash. This is not normal anything. We're talking about water rates not getting, or water bills not getting paid. We're talking about utilities getting deferred. We're talking about all kinds of stuff. Kids not going to classes. You know, I mean, it's not normal. Nothing about this is normal. So to say that we're going to keep doing it over and over and over again.
But what you have to realize, though, is that every year for the past, pick a number of years, right? We've said, this is a tough year. Last year we had a road project. Oh, we can't possibly do
You
it.
said it yourself like 4 times this meeting. This is the exception to the rule, right?
And
This
so
is-
this is the exception.
year.
So the number should actually be probably 40% based on what the staff uses, the amount of time that the administrative staff and the general fund uses to pay for their work on the enterprise fund. But we went down to 25% last year because it was such an unbelievable, difficult time. We had to do that. This year, yeah, it's really tough. So I'm willing to say we need to keep it at 25% this year. But going down to 15% because we've got another emergency, it's not ever gonna get any better. And we're not gonna ever revisit it. I've been doing this for long enough to know that it's just, you're juggling something and there's more money going out than there is money coming in. And I get that it's a very difficult situation this year. That's why I'm saying tough decisions need to be made. And I think that going from 25% allocation over to 15%, it's bad. It's bad for long term.
But then you can have to lump in the rest of the whole process we just went through in this giant folder of how we look at the entire budget and say, well, how does this work and can we revisit it? How does this work and can we revisit it? And that mindset, I don't know why it stops at the allocation. Like,
Because we're setting the budget for the whole year.
I get that. But like you said 100 times today.
Because here's the reason. When we go back and we transfer that money in or we transfer a little bit less money in, let's say all of a sudden COVID is over, people go back to work, everything is good. Let's just say the scenario that it does, and we are going to revisit that. Now we're going to say, we're going to now take that 300,000, whatever the difference is, right, going from 15 to 25%. How
Every
much?
5% is about 60,000.
All right, so
So 10% would be about 120.
120,000 on both sides, sewer and water, or it's just, so, right, so.
No,
so
it's together.
Total. All right, so 120,000.
On
Now in the
enterprise.
middle of December next year, when we're saying, wow, KIP really we need to revisit KIP and give him some more tools. But we also now have to say, the general fund is now going to get another $120,000 from the enterprise fund because COVID is over and we're revisiting it. It's not ever going to happen. It just doesn't work that way because the revenue from the enterprise fund already, just at zero, is 36% less than we need to be bringing in, just to hit zero, even with this cutback budget. Maybe it's a little bit less than that now, but it's.
So if you start 600,000 in the hole, what's the plan to go forward from there? So say you keep it at 25, right? Say we say, all right, it's going to be 25. Now you're over $500,000 in the hole to start. Where do you go from there?
It's a tough thing to say, but I think that we're going to need to relook at rates. I mean, the money has to come from somewhere, right? We need to be able to provide water and sewer services. It has to come from somewhere. We've kicked this can down the road for many, many years, right? I was on the council when we had a rate increase many years ago. We didn't do it as high as we should have because it was too tough to make that
No,
decision.
I mean, I've seen the study. It should have gone up 30% more or whatever it was, right? And you put another $100 a quarter on the bill, and that would have solved it 10 years ago or 8 years ago or whatever it was, but it didn't happen. And like you just said, tough decisions have to be made. This is an extremely difficult time we're in. But the bottom line is, for me, is everything is uncertain. You don't know when it's going to end.
The only thing that's certain is we got to provide these services. And our savings that we have, right, our cushion that we have in the enterprise fund is getting lower and lower and lower. And regardless of what number we take, 15% or 25%, that number is going to be shrinking to dangerously low numbers. You know, we have said for many, many years, we've got a great cushion, we've got a great cushion, a great cushion. Last year, when we had the water and sewer, when we did all the work, we said, you know what? Let's use this money. This is our rainy day money. Let's use it. Now we've got a real emergency. And if people don't pay, thankfully we've got enough cushion in our reserves. But that doesn't last for very long. And it's extremely difficult to build it back up when you have a 36% deficit every single year because we're not raising rates or because we're not paying back the bills that we're actually taking out. So you guys, if you want to do 15%, I get it. I'm fine with that. I just think it's bad to do. And
I guess in my head, the worst thing to do was to wait until now and why keep getting pushed off. That to me is a worse decision, to keep pushing it, rather than now to sit here and go, let's do 15 and then we'll figure it out and cut the deficit or whatever. But to me, the real folly was, why pay for a study to get done and then not listen to the guy who gave you all the information?
so what we have on here is our water sewer user fees update. That's coming up on our thing. And that's what we're going to be discussing next, right? So if by saying 15%, you're just kicking it down the road longer, you're doing the exact same thing. right? That was done in the past. The hardest part thing to do is say, we got to pay for this and we got to pay for
Again,
it
but
now.
those were in years when you could depend on people paying their water bills. You could depend on, money coming in. You could depend on all that stuff. This is not a normal time. It's just
And
not.
still, even with that year, we paid less than, we transferred in less than we actually should have. So we were doing funny math back then as well, when we knew that people were going to be able to pay. And that the rates were, even if the rates weren't high enough, people were going to be able to pay. We didn't have any kind of a terrible emergency. We still decided to go from 40 to 25%, right? So I would have rather had said last year, let's leave it at 40. This year, we're in a terrible time. Let's do it to 25%. Or let's not raise rates this year because we're in such a horrible time. Let's freeze it because we've got some cushion. We're running out of those options. So whether it's this year, next year, or 2 years down the road, it's coming. I mean,
And I'll say right now, like I know that there's going to be a conversation when we say, listen, your rates are going up 36% or whatever it is, and that's just, it is what it is. And that's, I live here, I'm going to have to pay the same thing. But the fact is it's not the people's fault, right? It's not their fault. They don't make policy. So knowing the fact that for the last 8 years we should have raised it, or 10 years, or however long the study was done, that's not their fault. But it's going to have to happen. But to get us there, we still got to get there.
so good policy says, whatever the enterprise fund uses in terms of administrative costs, they should be paying the general fund.
But good policy says we should have listened to the people we hired 8 years ago to raise the rates. That's good policy.
So by continuing on the mistakes of the past, that doesn't solve your problem.
But
for
you're
the
still
future.
you're not taking into account the fact this is not, none of this is normal. We're not in a normal situation. We're just not. And it sucks. It's not a place that any of us want to be. And I don't want to step into this seat, right, to have to tell people, hey, I'm going to raise your rates 36%, but I'm probably going to have to, and that's fine. Because that's why I sit here, is to be able to have those tough conversations. But we have to be able to get to that point.
The 25 to the 15% is such a minor part of that, though. It's just a putting a line in the sand saying, this is what we have to do. Whether it's raising rates, there's several steps that we'll probably have to take. So, I mean, I think this debate is done. If you guys want to do 15%, let's just do it and move on.
All right, let's do 15, move on.
I think the issue you gotta understand from your side is, he sat here, and I know because I sat in that corner of the room when the rate discussion was brought up, and there were a lot of people in this room that were ratepayers, and they were not very happy with the suggested amounts, and that's where the council, kind of took that into account and didn't raise it the way they should have, but that's what you had. You had the taxpayers and the ratepayers that were, but you're gonna have to realize that. I just think right now, it's an extraordinary time. I think we need to do something right now with this. And I've even asked Karen, we've got something here that we can look at. I mean, we can't raise rates right now, but it's something that I got, put together that we can look at. Maybe it's something we can do later on down the road to raise it when things get back into we know where the revenues are and stuff like that, and people are able to pay their bills kind of thing.
Just note that every time that we don't raise them, and I don't want to be the guy, we got to raise the rates, and I'm the one that wants to do all this. This is a tough decision. Every time that we don't do it, that makes it that much worse down the road, right? I mean, look at the decisions that the council has made, right? I mean, we had to raise rates many years ago because the council didn't do that for so long. Thankfully, we put in a place where it's an automatic 4% increase no matter what. If we had to have a decision on making 4% increase every year, it never would have happened. It's tough to do, right? The water and sewer that we did on Liberty and Commerce Street, that was deferred for 30 plus years. It had to get done.
That's why
Finally,
it cost us so much money.
you got to rip the Band-Aid off. And I'm saying that, like, if you really look at these numbers, the Band-Aid's coming, and it's the longer that we delay it, the worse it's going to be. So we're at 15%. Let's move on to whatever the next thing is.
All right, so two small things left. An update on health insurance and water and sewer fees is,
And public utility tax.
oh, sorry, I forgot. All right, so Crystal, I'll leave the table to you.
So I'm bringing back the health insurance, because as we were all eager to kind of get moving forward with the health insurance and open enrollment, I did get notification that our dental insurance decided to increase 5.5% in the premium costs, excuse me, due to trends. And we'd had a contract, well, through Legit, but their contract with United Concordia was I want to say it was flat rate or the same rate for about 4 years. So this is the first increase in that amount of time, which is pretty good. And the chart that I had provided before for the FY21, unfortunately neglected to include the current vacancy for the water wastewater. So the total was skewed as an oversight. So I did put in the memo the correct anticipated or estimated totals. As I said again, these are just anticipated because we don't know what the enrollment plan is going to be. So with that being said, it's actually a 46,000 increase overall for employer expenses. So if with the surplus applied, then the increase would be, 22,800. So we are still recommending to use that surplus to apply for that increase. Now, the 22,000, just so you're aware, like I said, is just anticipated at that full gold plan family rate. So I don't know what the result of that will be. It could be lower, but that's at the max. So I do apologize for that error the last time, but with that 5.5% premium cost with the dental, that also kind of increased it a little bit. So there should be no more surprises as I've gotten final, updates from our broker.
So how much did it increase it by?
Approximately 15,000. So it's like 13 for the estimated increase of the vacancy filled with the family plan or the family gold plan at the highest rate, and then whatever the percentage difference for the dental premium at the family plan.
And just so you know, the insurance rates are, and the increases noted on her memo are what you saw tonight in the budget.
They're in there already?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And I did update the chart so that you saw the FY21 employer cost as well as the employee cost. So the employee cost with, that vacancy accounted for also went from, I believe it was like 5,500 to like 9,900 for that employee cost.
What do you need from us tonight?
Just looking
Just a
for
yes.
approval to kind of just move forward with the open enrollment with the new updated numbers as well as the increase of the dental insurance so that I can continue with the open enrollment.
Okay. I make a motion that we approve the memorandum presented from Crystal based on employer FY20 total premium FY21 costs using the surplus of $23,450 to offset the portion of the employer premium as recommended.
Second. Got a motion,
Thank you.
or a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Carries.
All right, the final piece I have is I talked with Jeff last week about just seeing what some numbers would look like if we did 25% 2 years in a row, and then what effect that would have on an average bill. So the first two sheets gives you an FY21 and FY22 cost on minimum, on what a minimum bill would look like with those increases, and the third sheet shows you what an average bill looks like and what those increases, how that would affect on an average bill. Per quarter. I didn't know, Jeff, if this is something you wanted to discuss or just look at tonight and have it as a revisit, but
All right, because I brought something in last week that was similar to this, based on a 25% increase. I think mine was what was recommended is the 36% that you had originally come up with. That's with doing no capital projects that have been deferred for years and years and years.
correct. That just got us out of the shortfall.
do you have? Where's the other stuff at?
So I put in one that came out with rate increase options based on the minimum user and then the average user. So I did 10% increase, 36.5, and then 50%. So the minimum service user, if it went up 10%, it'd be 13 cents a day. Again, I'm bringing this out over a whole year. If it went up to 36.5, it's 46 cents per day, and 50% increase is 63 cents per day. And the average service user, so that's based on your 14,000 gallons per quarter.
It's all well and good to say 15 cents per day, 13 cents per day. The people out in there don't care about that. They want to know how much is their bill going to increase when they receive a bill. So they want to know quarterly, what is my bill going to increase?
Yep.
So that's what they want to know. I mean, this 13, 15 cents is all nice to hear, but it doesn't make a bit of difference till you receive your bill.
Well, I mean, I think it puts it in perspective in terms of what it actually costs you per day. Yeah, when you see a bill that comes in and it's $85 more, do you really think that's, when you first look at your bill, most of your bills come in as a monthly bill. This is a quarterly bill, right? So it's going to be looking a little bit different. Also, if you were going to look at what our rates are now compared to other places in Queen Anne's County, right? Bay City, Cloverfields, our rates are still lower than those rates that you'd be paying at those rates. So we don't necessarily need to get into this tonight, but this is one that's coming, right? And if you think about what we did with the COVID-19 payment plan, let's just say this was implemented and we were still in a state of emergency. Anybody who was having a hard time can actually defer those out, and they'll never get a late fee or a shut-off for the period of when that would actually get increased if it was during that COVID-19 period. So
almost 13 cents a day. What was the other one?
it should be in your packet, but it was,
Just doing some math here.
if we did 36.5% increase, right, on a minimum service user, so that's 6,000 gallons, I believe,
Yes.
right? That's 46 cents a day. And then for the average service user, it's 84 cents a day.
So you're talking difference between like 40 to 80 bucks a quarter.
Well, on a quarterly basis, it's $168 for the minimum, or is the total? Yeah, that would be the difference.
Based on usage.
It's all based on usage.
So can you take the numbers that he put together and do the same thing and just add that?
What was
to
yours,
the sheet?
10%?
Here, I'm pretty sure that it's in your email, but
I think it's in my packet, but.
So we can look at that.
My old pack is in my van. Okay. I can prep that for our next work session.
okay.
So I guess the only thing left Tim wanted to discuss was public utility tax.
Yep, so I don't know if you guys had a chance to read this. Josh, this is more for your benefit since you're relatively new and for anybody who's watching this outside. The public utility tax, you have it already? Okay. The public utility tax, it's a tax that's imposed on property used to operate, public utility property that's used to operate their business. So land and buildings, personal property like telephones, electric poles, towers, lines, cables, et cetera. So up through fiscal year 2016, our tax was $1.06 per hundred of assessed value. We increased that, and in I believe it was in May of 2016, we actually moved that up. So we actually brought in we brought it into fiscal year 2017. So that was May of 2016, $2.11. So it basically doubled what we were bringing in. So in FY 2016, our revenue for public utility tax was $61,000. FY 2017, it was $124,000. FY 18, $121,000. FY 19, $130,000. Last year, we actually raised it to $3.11 per hundred. So the revenue we generated was $195,000. So this year, I believe that if we leave it the same, it's going to be just about that.
Yep.
So every additional dollar increase that the public utility tax brings in, it's $62,000 in revenues. So, you know, in terms of the public utility tax, this has been one that has been a way that we've been able to raise revenues without impacting property taxes on the average person. You know, the question would be, well, how does this get spread around? So it does. So the main providers who are affected by this are Verizon Communications, who did $131 billion in revenue last year and $15 billion in profits. So any increase we have in the value of their property would be spread out over 151 million customers, right? And that's just wireless. It's not including internet, phone, et cetera. Exelon, which owns Delmarva, had $35.9 billion in revenue last year and $3.77 billion in profit. They're number 89 in the Fortune 500 list, right? They have 532,000 customers in Maryland and Delaware and 10 million customers total. So with that amount, that $195,000 that we received in the general fund for public utility last year was spread out over 10 million customers for Exelon, 151 million customers for Verizon. So food for thought in that, you know, if we wanted to consider raising that again, every dollar that we raise it brings in $64,000 to the general fund. I think it's something we should consider. I don't have anything else on that unless there's any discussion.
How much are you proposing?
I'm not proposing anything. I'm just saying I think we should consider it, right? I put some numbers in on the email that I sent over to you of what it would raise. Remember, every dollar is about $64,000, right? So if you think about a regular property tax, 1 penny is about $54,000. So every penny that a property tax would be raised is about $54,000. Every dollar that we raise in utility tax is about $64,000.
We're currently at 311
We're currently at 311. Yep.
per 100 of assessed value.
Up from, what would he have before?
It was 211 the previous year, and then before that it was $1.06. $1.06. We doubled it. Yep. So the decision doesn't have to be made tonight, but I think it's one that we should look at. We talk about this hole that we've got.
What about comps around us? What do we, so I'm looking at Port Deposit, Brunswick, Newmarket.
Yep, so those are illustrated on some other municipalities that also have a higher multiplier than we do. So for example, Port Deposit has a four-time multiplier based on what their property tax rate is, multiply the multiplier and that will give you what the public utility tax is.
Still lower than we are.
Not necessarily. Some of them are higher than we are. What's our multiplier?
What's our multiplier?
13. About seven times.
Yeah, 7.67, 68.
So if you look at that thing I sent over, right? Brunswick is 6.309, Myersville is 7.04, Village of Martin's addition is 100. So for every cent of property tax they bring in, it's the amount of money that they bring in for utility tax is 100 times that. And so I listed a bunch of reasons why we might consider it, right? Cost is spread out over all utility payers. General fund balance was depleted by $1 million last year to the road project. Permanent fund was depleted by, I think, $2.9 million, or when it's all said and done. We lost out because of the permanent fund being depleted. We're going to lose out on $69,000 in interest. There's a whole dollar right there in public utility, or more than a penny on a tax rate that we're not going to get this year and every year going forward.
I would say come up with a proposal and see what you want to do, and we can talk about it.
So I got different numbers there.
But a dollar amount, like what do you
So-
want?
I want to hear from you guys, right? I mean, we could go stay what it, every dollar we raise it is $64,000. We could do $1 and we get $64,000 more. You could do $5 and we get $300,000 more. I mean, why don't we put this on the agenda for next meeting?
Yeah, let's talk about it next meeting.
Okay, I have nothing else on the budget for tonight unless you guys have anything. Otherwise, we'll be back here on the 23rd at 6 PM.
I don't think we'll be starting at 6.
We're not.
What's that?
You asked to,
6:30.
Yeah, 6:30.
6:30?
I think we're doing a closed session at 6:30.
6:30, they want to have a closed section.
We'll start
Oh.
at 7.
So we'll start at 7.
Yeah, we'll start at 7.
All right, one of the other things I wanted to bring up, and Karen and I discussed this too, was the amounts that we're lagging in the funds currently.
What?
The amounts of revenue that we don't have right now that we were expecting, that,
Yes.
what's the percentages again?
85 we have for so 15 we're missing for general, 26 for enterprise fund. With
We're
one
not,
quarter.
not sure when they're gonna come in,
Yeah.
because things have been pushed out, so they might.
Water and sewer will be based on how many payment agreements we do and when they can pay. And general fund is local income tax, and HUR is the two big ones that we're missing a piece of. Now, we normally don't get those, the HUR till May, June, so there's still a possibility. I just don't know. I've reached out to a contact, just waiting to hear back. But right now, we're 15% shy on one side and 26 on the other.
So I guess what I'm proposing is that we freeze everything at this current time. That's not something that we actually absolutely have to take care of.
What would that be? I mean, I get that we're gonna, I mean, I'm concerned about it as well, right? I think the comptroller had said maybe 15% is gonna go down by that much. I think that's what we're gonna probably see.
Right.
But, you know, we were just talking about Kip's budget, right? He says that he's got a very tight budget, and he hasn't bought stuff yet, perhaps small tools and whatnot, because he waits. And these are things that he absolutely needs to operate on. So I think that we should give the department heads the power to decide, hey, this is going to be tough. We may get to the end of the year and there may not be money left, so use your money wisely. I know that I believe the department heads have done that consistently year over year. I mean, Ken does a great job managing his budget. He saves things. I think that we need to give them the leeway to decide what they need to do.
I understand that. In normal times, I would agree with you, but as we've said multiple times tonight, these are extraordinary times. And we can't count on the revenues that we budgeted on. Everything was budgeted based on those revenues. And there's a possibility those revenues will not come in this fiscal year. So
we do still have good reserves that we can actually use if need be. The amount of money that we're talking about, I don't think is that much. I think we need to leave it up to the department head's discretion. I think when you make a political policy decision like this of stopping everything immediately, I think that's gonna hobble these guys.
What do you want to stop specifically? Where do you draw the line in the sand, I guess was my question.
well, there are capital items that were budgeted that haven't been purchased yet. It's like, and I've told people this time and time again, when we approve capital items, they should be purchased pretty close to when we approve them for the fiscal year. They shouldn't sit and wait, because this is what can happen, and emergencies can come up where you have to take money that was budgeted for something else and move it over into another more important item.
And so that exact example right there is one that Kip illustrated earlier, in that he holds off on buying certain things in case something else breaks, right? So if he's got a lawnmower that he thinks is going to make it, and then something else that he's not sure of, and he's holding off because he knows he wants that lawnmower, that small tool, and then all of a sudden something else breaks, that's critical, he wants to hold off on that.
Lawnmower is a good example, because when it's budgeted in the capital to replace a lawnmower, we don't buy the lawnmower that fall, we don't buy it that winter. We wait until the springtime of the following year, because you're gonna get as much as you can out of that mower. There's no sense buying a mower and letting it sit in the shed over the winter while you're losing your warranty time when it's not being used. So the closer you get to the spring, or even in the spring, to replace that mower, that's when it happens, not in the middle of the mowing season.
But I guess on the other hand, the money that you said you were gonna spend on the mower, you priced the mower at this time, and if you wait 9 months to purchase your mower, the mower can go up in price, so your purchase price might be more than what you originally budgeted.
We take that into account when I figure my capital budget. The other thing is, when we buy through Sourcewell, or if we buy on the state contract, those prices are set, and they'll hold, some of them will hold 2 or 3 years. So that's already looked at. I understand where you're coming from, but it's like the glass is half full or is the glass half empty. If I had bought everything by the end of July in 19 that I had in my capital, you'd be a whole lot worse than you are now, but it would have been spent. So which do you want? Do you want us to spend it all then, and now you're in, having trouble making decisions because your revenues are down? I tried to look out for both sides of it.
I understand, and I'm not knocking you or anything like that, I'm not trying to say, but there was, when I first came on this council, we put a generator for the police station in the budget, in the capital budget. That was almost 3 years ago. That generator has still not been purchased as of yet, as far as I know, correct?
Yes, no, you approved it, the council approved it, and it's been ordered.
Yeah, it's been ordered this year. It
But
wasn't-
why is that though? Why didn't we purchase it? Because we delayed years and years and years because we
No,
wanted to get
because
it.
we were told by the council to go for a grant. We went
Right,
for 2
that's what
grants.
I'm
and
saying.
we didn't
That
get-
wasn't staff's problem, that was, they wanted to look for grants. Jim asked for that. And
Yes,
in the
after
time-
it sat for a certain period of time. It was approved, and it sat for a while before anything was done with it. And then at MML, we decided we were gonna go and talk to the different state agencies to see if there was any grant funds for it. But it sat for a while before anything was done with it. It was approved in a budget, because I personally find it ridiculous that this town doesn't have a generator in one of their buildings, so that if something happens in this town, we have no place to go. Now, we do have generators for our water and pumps and all that kind of stuff, but we don't have any generators for our buildings.
I fully agree with you. But if you also remember what was first budgeted for that generator, that wasn't the generator that you're getting now, and that's the reason that one was bumped that first year. It was only $15,000, and that wouldn't even halfway cover the installation, let alone the generator. And I'm sorry, I didn't come up with that figure for that budget, but, that's another reason it wasn't spent then. There wasn't any sense putting a generator in there that was gonna be too small. So,
For the one that was just ordered, based on the COVID
Because
situation, we're not gonna receive delivery until mid-July.
when I first started on this and I got the price and everything and brought to you, it was a 3-week delivery time on the generator and equipment. In this little bit of time, it's gone from 3 weeks to over 13 weeks. So, and there's things like that come up all the time, so.
Oh, that's my recommendation. Tim has his opinion on it.
I don't know where the line in the sand is. I just don't know it's fine to say we want to freeze spending on stuff that's not necessary, but what do we deem necessary? I mean, if you gotta work, you gotta work.
I'm gonna give you 2 examples. Kip's already mentioned the mowers. We have 2 mowers we got left to buy. One's for the cemetery, it's supposed to be paid for out of cemetery funds. The other one is for, the parks, that's already approved, but like Kip said, he didn't want to buy it during the fall and the winter months, and it just, doesn't get full use. So there's two purchases. You put a freeze, we can't buy those two things. One's paid for out of the cemetery fund, and the other one's an approved purchase that it's grass cutting season, so.
It's got to get cut, and the lawn has to get cut, right? And COVID or not, come July, if that cemetery is in really bad shape, we hear it, right? And I think that was one of the commitments we made to the Cemetery Advisory Committee last year is we're going to get it done, and we're going to take care of it. You cut your stuff to the bone.
At the end of the day, I think you should trust our department. I don't see anybody in here wasting money unnecessarily, and I think that, if you don't need to buy something, just don't buy it. I guess I'm asking you to use your better judgment.
Money.
Huh?
I didn't say.
No, I'm not putting words in your mouth.
I'm just saying, don't sit there and say I'm trying to say they're wasting money.
I'm
I
not.
appreciate everything everybody does for this town that works for this town. But we're in extraordinary times. We don't have the revenue that we thought we were gonna have when we did the budget. So that's my point. I'll be like Tim on this. I'll be on the lone island on this one. That's fine. I'm bringing my points forward on why I'm saying what I'm saying. If you guys decide otherwise, that's fine. It'll be 2-1. I don't have an issue with that, but I'm just putting it out there.
I trust the department heads to use your better judgment, is to only get what you need. I mean, don't put us in a worse position. You guys know, you're out there. I'm not doing your job. So I'm not going to tell you how to do your job, but I will tell you to use your better judgment.
Yep.
And protect the account as much as you can. That's my recommendation.
Okay? All right. Is there anything else before we move on? Nope. Okay, we're going to council roundtable. Josh.
I just want to say thanks to everybody. I mean, there's people in grocery stores. I went to Walmart in Denton today. It was like a total disaster in there. It's ridiculous. And people are in there working, and you say thanks to as many people as you can. But I know we talk about it every week, but department heads, first responders, people stocking shelves. I mean, it's crazy. So just thank you to everybody doing everything they can to keep us rolling.
Stay safe. I don't have anything else. One of the first time I don't have anything to say.
Okay.
We make a note.
Document that. I'll just second what Josh said. I don't want you guys to think that I'm here trying to bash you for anything. I'm not doing that.
No, I fully
Just an
understand.
extraordinary time that we're just trying to get by, and hopefully, when we get to the other end, everything will be back to where we can get to where we're supposed to be. So I appreciate everything everybody does. So thank you very much. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.